Welcome, client acquisition and scaling family. I hope everyone had an amazing weekend. Welcome to the Monday Mindset, where we gather every single Monday to feed our minds, get tips and strategies, and get motivated for an amazing week. If this is your first time, welcome. Glad to have you here. Go ahead and type first in the comments. If you'd like to receive SMS messages so you don't miss one of these, we'll send it out 10 minutes prior to start. Type SMS in the comments and we'll get you the link where you can get on our SMS list. Now, for my new folks, my name is Lisa Parziale and I own a 7-figure agency in North Texas. Today, we're going to talk about sales and why you may be struggling to get a yes, why you may be struggling to make the sale, to close more sales. You know, selling can be one of the toughest hurdles that we actually have to get over in our business, right? You know, selling and lead gen, all of that can really hold us back from making our goals and everything we desire. Now, some of you guys might know me well enough to know when I first started my business, I tell this story a lot. I hated sales, hated it. I would genuinely get nauseous. I would literally get sick to my stomach with the thought of getting on the phone, with the thought of having to talk to people that either really weren't expecting my call, or I just felt like somehow that it just wasn't, going to be a good call, right? So it would make me sick. It would make me just not want to do it. Obviously, we all hate cold calling. I mean, there's a select few people who love cold calling, but not many. But just the thought of selling, the thought of having to close, the thought of having to ask money, it just really didn't sit well with me. And I didn't like to do it. And so as you can imagine, I was kind of bad at it. And in the beginning, I would get a lot of leads. Lead gen was always one of my strong suits, but I wasn't making the sales. And I had a lot to learn, when it came to sales, right? At some point, you're going to have to ask for money. At some point, you're going to have to ask for the sale. That's what's referred to as the close, right? The close. Now, I don't know about you guys, but every book I read, every video I watched, all of them have closing methods that, at least for me, felt uncomfortable doing. It's funny because some of the best salespeople in the world really are the ones that teach selling, but unfortunately, they're also the ones that I just don't vibe with. They're not really doing things the way I would. They're not talking the way I would. They're not presenting the way I would present. And they're certainly not closing the way I would feel comfortable closing. And a lot of them, while they were hugely successful, would make me think of the quintessential used car salesman. And there's nothing wrong with being a used car salesman, right? And don't get me wrong, some of the greats taught me plenty and eventually led to the method I actually use today. And that method I use is something I called unselling. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And hopefully these tips, and some of the tricks that I've come up with might help you close just a few more sales, right? It doesn't matter how many sales you lose as you're practicing your methods. And I want you to keep that in mind. You're practicing and you should get better and better. Now, one of those greats, Mr. Zig Ziglar, had an amazing story he told. And it revolved around the cost versus the price. Anybody heard that? Put in the chat. Yeah, you've heard Zig Ziglar speak. You've heard him talk about the cost versus the price, things like that. And so one of the first lessons I learned was really that I had to think about why my service was worth what it was worth, right? And I think in the beginning, I charged very little because I didn't think I was worthy of more. And then over time, as I felt more worthy, I wanted to raise my prices, but I really didn't know how to justify that. Or more importantly, I didn't know how to explain it, or maybe put something down or show something that could help. Well, Zig Ziglar has a very good video. And if you go back to the Zoom, announcement for this call this morning on Facebook, and I'm sorry I didn't get it out yesterday. I usually try to get those out on Friday and or Sunday, but I have a link there for you to go watch this video I'm about to mention. So Zig talked about cost versus price, right? And many other people talk about cost versus price. So a couple, William Arthur Ward said, the price of excellence is discipline. The cost of mediocrity is disappointment. So cost versus price, right? Meister Eckhart said, the price of inaction is far greater than the cost of making a mistake, right? So we fear taking action, but the price of inaction, not taking action, is far greater than the cost of any mistake we'll ever make. Now, these are all theories. Zig Ziglar put cost versus price into our world, into the sales world. He helped us think about it in a way that hopefully you'll be able to go into any sales call and kind of keep in mind. And what he did is, in his story, and I'll sum it up for you in case you don't watch the video, he illustrated a scenario where he was going to buy a bicycle for his son. And when he tells the story, he has a whiteboard that he's writing on as he tells the story. Now, the first lesson I want you to learn today is when you actually talk to a customer, they hear you. When you can get them on a Zoom call and you can help them visualize, meaning you're having tools, maybe have them look at spreadsheets, maybe you're writing on a whiteboard on the Zoom call, whatever it is. When you actually put visuals into the mix, right? People believe what they see, but they don't always believe what they hear, right? You hear the phrase, I seen it with my own eyes. So one of my first tips in the unselling method is, right? We don't want to illustrate and have all this crazy stuff, but at the same time, if we can come up with simple ways to illustrate our point where we get to write them down or put them in something we can show the customer, that is going to really help us with getting the customer to see what we're trying to show them. And Zig Ziglar does this in the video. Watch what he does. He actually uses a whiteboard and he talks about his experience buying a bicycle. And the story is kind of fun, but very effective. His son needed a bicycle and he went down to a discount store, right? And purchased a bicycle that was super inexpensive at the time for $34.95. And back then that was a lot of money. The same bicycle, a Schwinn name brand bicycle, would have cost something like $64.95. So almost double the price. So right there, you're comparing two things. You're comparing two prices, $34.95 and $64.95. And interestingly, Zig actually went for the bicycle that had a lower price. Now, what happened was his son started riding the bicycle, and about 60 days later, he needed to have the handlebars replaced. And the handlebars were in warranty, so he thought, great, and he got them replaced. But then a month later, something else happened, and the handlebars needed to be replaced again. They took it back, and they said, well, now it's out of warranty. So the cost to replace the handlebars at the time was $4.50. So he paid the fee. And about 3 months later, the sprocket apparatus failed. Now that's the brakes and all this. I mean, you can't use the bike without it. Costs $15 to replace that and to repair that. So he's 4 months in to owning a bicycle. Think about this. And he's already invested another $19.50 in his purchase. Then a couple months later, the bearings in the front wheel of the bicycle went out. And he went back to the store. And the store told him, hey, it's going to be $5 to replace them. And that was the straw that broke Zig's back, right? He decided it was time to cut his losses, throw in the towel and say, look, I'm done. I'm done with this bike. Obviously, this bike is not worth what it cost. And wait for that. He paid $34.95 for the bike. He already had roughly $54.95 into the cost of ownership at that point. And here he was faced with, should you put another $5 in? And who knows how long that will last before he had to come back. He turned around and he went to the Schwinn store and bought his son a brand new Schwinn bicycle at that point, $64.95, which at the time was a lot of money. And he goes on to tell us his son rode that bicycle for 5 years, every single day. And then periodically for another 10 years after that. So the price of the Schwinn was much higher, as you saw, right? Much higher than the previous bicycle. But the cost was lower. And here's why. The cost of the original bike, it only lasted for 6 months. So if you took that, money he spent on it, $54.95, including the purchase price and all the repair prices he's had to put into it, he essentially paid $9 per month for his son to ride that bicycle. Comparatively, that Schwinn lasted him something like 15 years. Now, if you do the math, he never had to repair anything, he said, except during the life cycle of owning the bike, he had to replace the two tires one time. Now, that's something you would have had to do on any bicycle. So over the 15 years, he only paid $4.33 a year for his son to ride that bicycle. That's 36 cents per month. So in true Zig Ziglar fashion, when you're talking to a future customer, when you're talking to someone and they have a problem with price, as he so eloquently puts it, ask him, is it the cost or the price you're concerned with? And that's going to open up a conversation. And it's something that I do to this day in my method. And we're going to talk about my method a little bit more called Unselling, but that's one lesson I learned, because the cost of something is not equal to the price paid. Think about websites when you sell a website and I quote $3,000. And invariably, you're going to have customers in a sales cycle who say to you, well, but this other guy, he's only quoting me $1,500. That's a great time to say, okay, totally understand. Is it the cost or the price you're concerned with? And they'll say, what do you mean? Well, our price is turnkey and everything's included. And over the next several years, we're going to be here to support you. And you're not going to have issues or trouble with the workmanship of the website we build because we guarantee it. I can't speak for the other guy, but I do know many salespeople in our industry will quote you low. They'll give you a low price. And as you start building the website, things are going to pop up that they didn't tell you about or they didn't include, or they're not going to do things that you don't realize you need until after. And then after, they're going to come back and tell you, oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't included in my price. We're not going to do that. So do you see how I'm using what Zig Ziglar did? And in conversations, I have the ability to interject and really help a customer understand when somebody's charging a higher wage, when somebody's charging a higher price, are you in fact getting a higher quality? If you have to, use Zig's story. It's a great story. Come up with your own story that's kind of similar. Like, hey, I had a customer, and then go into your story. Because your price, while it might be higher, is actually better for the customer. So you've got to figure out how, in fact, to put these kind of things into your sales without sounding like a salesperson, right? So I think you see what Zig Ziglar did there. Now, mind you, Zig Ziglar's style is not my style. It's not a style I'm comfortable with. He's very aggressive. And he uses psychology a lot on his customers to get them to make the choices they made when he was selling. And back in the 50s and 60s, some of these salespeople, let's be honest, that was okay. But in today's world, we have to be a little less subtle with that kind of stuff. We are a little more subtle with that kind of stuff. We can't try to be the madmen of the 1950s. It's not going to go over well. And there was another great, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, called Elmer Wheeler. Anyone heard of Elmer Wheeler? And to refresh your memory, his video talked about selling the sizzle, not the steak. Selling the sizzle, not the steak. And I'll post that link as well in the Facebook group when we get off the call. Again, very dated sales techniques, but you can still garner some really good tips from some of these greats, right? And what Elmer meant was, when you talk about selling the sizzle, not the steak, you really have to sell the thing the customer desires, not the thing itself, right? When you think about the steak, right? Sell the sizzle, not the steak. It's really saying, when that steak's cooking and you can, almost hear that sizzle and it makes you think about the taste and the aroma of that steak. That's what you're selling, not the steak itself, right? You're selling the experience. You're selling the thing the person wants. Now, in our line of work, we are in the trap of selling a service or a product. And not often does it have great sizzle like a steak, right? What ends up happening is we inadvertently think that the sizzle is the technical details. And so we start making that mistake. We start going down that path. That's what I did when I first started selling SEO and website design and, blogging and social and the things we sell. I did it for years and I closed at a much lower rate than I close today. Okay. So we need to dig down. We need to sell the sizzle, as Elmer suggests. Now, what is the sizzle in our world? Anyone know? Anyone know what the sizzle is in our world? Trying to convince the dog he wants to be quiet as well. Okay, in our world, the end result is the sizzle, right? Reaching more customers. Yeah, reaching more customers. Dale, instant gratification. I hire you and I want people to call me from Google right away. The end result for us is they don't care how many clicks and likes they get. Who cares about that? They don't care if they're position 1, 2, or 3. They don't. They don't care how many backlinks you make for them. They don't care how many blogs you write for them. Even if they mention these things, it's only because they've read things online that told them they should care about this stuff. What they really care about, their sizzle, is getting more customers, getting more clients, closing more sales, making more revenue. That's what they're looking for. And that's what we have to sell. We have to sell the end result, just like a steak, right? If we tried to sell a raw steak, it's just not enticing. If we sell a cooked steak and we show them the end result, that mouth watering sizzle, you can hear it, you can taste it, you can feel it. It's the same way in our world when we're unselling, right? We're not going to sell tech. Instead, we're going to sell, look, I know, Mr. Customer, bottom line, you're just looking to get more customers. And that's what we do. While we do it in a very technical way, we're in the business of finding you more customers. That's what we do, right? Period. And that is one of our main selling points. Not all the techno talk, right? We can't talk about all the things we want to talk about because it's going to confuse the customer. And I don't know if you've ever heard this saying, but confused minds never say yes. Confused minds never buy. So if the customer is even slightly confused, if they don't understand slightly one thing, it could be the difference between making and breaking the sale. Think about that. That's huge. So the techno talk is going to lead us down a path of trouble. The techno talk, the details, the how, right? The how we're going to get there need to be left behind. We don't talk about how. We talk about end results, more customers, higher ROI, greater revenue. That's what we're going to talk about. Our job is to absolutely leave no confusion about the end result, what the customer will get when hiring you. They will get a website that converts lookers into buyers. They will get an SEO result that lists them on Google so people find them and call them. That's what we're selling. Now, I learned a lot from the greats, Zig Ziglar, Elmer Wheeler, Brian Tracy, I could go on. But what I had to figure out, and what we're going to talk about the rest of the time, I had to figure out and come to what was my style. What felt comfortable for me? Knowing all the things salespeople will tell you, the greats, is wonderful. But the minute you try to emulate them, the minute you try to do what they do, and it doesn't fit your personality, it doesn't fit you, it'll be transparent to the customer like no other. And I remember when I first created this course, and if you happen to be one of the people that were on the first ever webinar I ever did for one of the courses I created, I tried to emulate Russell Brunson. I'd gone through some training. I did the one funnel away challenge. Dang it, I was going to do what he told me to do. And he told me to do exactly what he did. While I love his methods and I love a lot what he has to teach me, that was some of the worst advice I could have received because I'm not him. And I don't feel comfortable talking the way he does. So in fact, it flustered me and made me more unbelievable than I could ever have tried to be. So that's something I want you guys to keep in mind. Take pieces from what I tell you. Take pieces from what other people teach you and show you. And then form your own style and do things that feel natural to you. And that's why I call my method unselling. Because I didn't like sales. I couldn't do sales. In fact, I was poor at the close. I was poor at asking for money. I could do a great job with a presentation. But when it came down to asking for money, I was bad at it. So what I learned and the method I created was really every time I'm in any type of sales situation, I try to find ways to make it less salesy for me and for the customer. And so let me illustrate this. When we sell SEO, we have a process, and it's a very finite process, and I don't really waver from it. And I'll tell you the results before I tell you the story. You heard me say I probably had a lower closing ratio. Well, in fact, my closing ratio used to be about 40 to 50%. And then I learned and formulated methods that worked for me. My closing ratio is now between 70 and 80%. And it's because for me, the act of selling is the part I couldn't do. So I had to create my own methods, my own style to where I'm not selling. And that's why I call it unselling. And it's as simple as being a consultant. And so let's think about SEO. I'm trying to sell SEO. When I first get the call, I have in my process told myself I will not close on the first call, period. It's not even an option. I take it off the table for myself. That first call, my job is to listen to the customer, to gather information from the customer, and literally figure out what the real problem is that that customer needs solved. And I'm sure you can imagine why. Because I'm not there to sell SEO. What am I there to sell? The end result. And I can't sell that unless I know what they believe the end result should be, not what I think it should be. What do they think it should be? You'll be surprised that what we do as human beings, we project quite a lot. We project what we think the customer wants, what we think the customer thinks. And when you dig in, and I won't have time, obviously, in this short session to go into our exact method and how it works and to give you the, the practical experience about it. I just want to open your eyes to the fact that if you have trouble with sales, if you struggle with selling, there's a better way. Again, I love the greats and I love all these top salespeople. Let's be frank. The top of the top are there because they are the bulldogs. They're the ones that have no problem with sales. They're not us. We have problems and we need a different way, a better way. So unselling is all about consulting with the customer. So on that first call, I'm there, I'm asking questions, I'm getting what I need in the consultation. And then I'm going to schedule a follow-up call with that customer because then I'm going to go back and do my homework. But more importantly, I'm going to go in and I'm going to mentally prepare for that second call. I'm going to mentally prepare and physically get my presentation in order. Now, I'm not talking about a pitch deck. I'm not talking about a canned presentation. And the way I sell, I'm talking about getting some specific materials together to have that call. And again, I'm not going to go into all that today as much as I know you guys want me to. But notice on that first call, taking that sale away, saying, no, I won't sell on the first call. The pressure's gone. I'm not there to sell. I'm there to fact find, gather information. And that first call, I remind myself I should speak very little. My mouth should stay shut. My ears should stay open. I shouldn't put words in the customer's mouth, including asking questions that bait for a specific answer. Open-ended questions where I'm waiting for them to figure out what I'm asking and then tell me what they really feel. And then when we get on the second call, it's the same idea. I'm not there to sell them. I'm there to educate them in what the end result they want, how we can get them there. Notice I didn't say what I have to sell them. I'm there to educate them on the end result they want and how I can get them there. That is unselling. By the end of my calls, my customers sell themselves. I don't ask, so are you ready to move forward? Those words don't come out of my mouth. Well, are you ready to invest today? Don't say that. I never have to say anything because as a consultant and an educator, and doing it in a very non-confrontational manner, my customers tend to, at the end of the calls, sell themselves. Awesome, awesome. All right, so how do we get started? What does it look like to get started? What's the cost of getting started? This is what my customers say to me at the end. I hated sales. I didn't like selling. So I created methods by which people would sell themselves. And in an SEO world, in a web design world, in a techno world like we live in, that's a difficult thing to do. But that is your goal. If you go in with the idea that I'm going to sell this customer SEO, then you've just decided they think they need SEO when they probably don't even know what it is. So anyone see the light at the end of this tunnel? Anyone who's super struggling with sales, think about this and go, that would be great. That would be nice. I would love at the end of a call for customers say, hey, yeah, what does it take? What do we need to do to get started? Those are my favorite calls, and they happen more often than not. You guys want stuff like that? Would that be better than you having to have this complicated close? And, again, I love Zig and I love Brian and I love all these salespeople, but it's not 1950, 1960, 1970. It's not even 2010. It's 2021, and people are higher, more educated. People are on the internet. People don't want to be sold anymore. They don't. Awesome. Awesome. Seeing some oh yeahs in there, like the oh yeah. Perfect. Perfect. All right, guys. Unselling is literally about stopping the sales mind and becoming a consultant, becoming a problem solver, figuring out what the underlying problem is. And yes, everyone needs more customers, but why do they need more customers? So I'm going to stop there because I like to also tell you guys a little bit more about the programs we have coming up, and then we're going to stop it there. And then if you guys have questions, ask them in Facebook. Okay. So now that you guys know, I went from a 40 to 50% close ratio to a 70 to 80% close ratio. Hopefully you can see why being the consultant, the friend, the problem solver, the strategist is key, not the salesman. They're not buying a product from you. They're partnering with you for you to solve their issues. Unselling is simply the art of not worrying about the sale and instead kind of looking for the underlying problem your customer has and then seeing if your products or services can solve them. And if so, I guarantee you, if you follow a very specific selling formula, they will sell themselves. I promise you. Now, I know you guys are wondering, a lot of you guys are already in our program. So hopefully you're getting excited because, our sales stuff is in every program we have. So for those of you who are not, if you're wondering, hey, how do I learn these super cool methods? Wonder no more. Okay. Obviously, if you don't know, we do in fact have some really great programs, two to be exact, and they will help you close more sales and scale your business. Again, you're not going to hear me tell you this is what you need to do. In our programs, I show you what I did. I illustrate what struggles I had. I'm completely raw and honest and tell you everything I went through to get to where I am. And then I want you to mold that to be you, not a carbon copy of me. Because guess what? You could be better than me. And that's how you always want to think about it. Now, last week, we opened the doors on the first program, which is our Agency Fast Track X Success. That's the first time it's been open in 4 months, and it's going to close probably the week after next. We've got a couple webinars happening this week. If we fill the seats, it closes immediately. Otherwise, it'll close in a couple weeks. We don't like to sell into it past week 3 or 4. After that, it closes. It'll be closed through next year. And next year, January-ish, we'll open it again. So if it's something that you've been thinking about, something you're on the fence about, or something you don't even know about and you want to learn about quickly, you need to get in touch. Now, we have another program, and it's going to open in September. It's our 10X program. It's the bigger program. It's got all the processes and all that jazz. Again, it hasn't opened in 6 months, and it won't open again for 6 months after that. So it's something that, again, if you're interested, you need to get in touch. So here's how we like to talk about our programs. Yes, I do some webinars occasionally for friends who are also in the business, but otherwise, I prefer to do one-on-one calls with you guys. Yeah, it takes more of my time, but then I make sure you're in the right program and you're on the right track. So if you're interested, if you don't, already have enrolled in one of our programs and you are interested to learn about them, no obligation. You can tell I'm not a hard pressure person. I want you to type fast track, just the word fast track, in the chat, in the comments. If you're watching the replay, I will reach out. We'll schedule up a quick 15-20-minute call. I'll tell you about some stuff. I'll learn a little bit about your business, and then we'll see if one of our programs is a good fit. That's it. No pressure, no hard sales, nothing like that. Now, you guys know we put on these every Monday. I want you guys to learn something. I want you to take away something from it. I'm not just here to sell the programs. And in fact, after we close the program, I won't talk about the programs for a long time. I do it a little bit more during, when they're open, and then we go back to not doing it hardly at all. So again, if you'd like to make a change in your business, type fast track in the comments. Somebody will reach out to you and schedule a quick call. Okay, awesome, awesome. Guys, I hope this Monday mindset gets your week off to an amazing and productive start. I hope it fuels your brain to think, okay, today's Monday. If you have a sales problem or if you're struggling with sales, I hope it helps you to think, you know what, I got to solve this problem. Don't be okay with 40 to 50% close ratios. Find ways to get better at closing. And think about exactly what Zig Ziglar said, price versus cost. So when you're thinking about whether it's my program, other people's programs, investing in yourself, you should always invest in yourself because the price will be less than the cost of not doing so. If you could close 70, 80% better, the price will be way less than the cost of not doing so. I didn't have that mindset when I started my business, and it's a mindset I had to really adopt. And once I started investing in myself, both monetarily with courses and mentoring and things like that, but also with my time, taking time for education, taking time to watch videos, taking time to learn. I'm going to put 2 in the Facebook group today. Watch them and get motivated. David, thank you. Thank you. Love that you guys get motivated. That's one of the reasons we're here. We want to get motivated every Monday. I want to get motivated. I get off this call and Monday is one of my most productive days. All right, guys, to change your business, remember, you have to start by changing your minds. We have to remember that we're always in a growth period. We should never stop growing and learning and investing in that greatest asset we have, our minds. Thanks for joining me today. Thank you for joining our Monday Mindset. Some of you guys are regulars. I appreciate it. For those of you guys who watch the replays regular, I appreciate it. Guys, have a productive, profitable, and great week. Thanks, guys.